What would you say if I told you that there was a way to win almost 100% of the time? Sound impossible? Well, it can probably be much more rooted in reality than many of those tips and trips that promise a shortcut on the way to success in whatever your goal is. I mean, there's things that will make sure you can lose weight without dieting and exercise, and instant hack to find the love of your life, or kind of the trick money solutions, or what is it? The Get Rich Trick theme? But again, we kind of want those shortcuts because we it's fast, it's easy, it's simple. But the thing about to win almost 100% of the time is that it's probably one of the closest examples of actually taking the long way that there is. Well, it's actually also as simple as following a straight line. And this principle of success is that if you fall down, you get back up. Now, that may seem like the complete opposite of winning, but that is only because we have this tendency to view failure as the loss or the end of whatever it is that we're doing. Yet, when we take the look at some of these most lasting stories and the characters that are the ones who kind of endure and can take the blows and still keep on going, that really stick out. At least they do to me. It's kind of like when we see this character with invulnerability and all the bullets, all the punches are just kind of not effective to them, and how they can just basically get through it all or cover for their companions is kind of impressive in a way. And sometimes that to make them overpowered because then you have to find a way to make them give them a threat. So it's like you either harm their companions or you give them like kryptonite or whatever it is. And then we have the healers like Wolverine or Deadpool or whatever, where you can knock them down all the time, but they will dip back up and still keep coming. Personally, I also like intangibility because it's kind of like being unhindered in a way as well, instead of just letting everything just passes through you, or while also being able to go anywhere pretty much. So personal preference, but and then there's also just the pure willpower where it's like the person may be almost normal, but they'll keep on chugging, even when it seems like they shouldn't even be able to move. It's like they're still going to come after you. It's just kind of impressive to see those kind of things, even if it doesn't naturally make much sense. But it's still impressive to see kind of the people who will stick it out to the end to see the goal done. And granted, a lot of these examples are probably more about just getting back up and then brute forcing a solution by attrition, which is not always the best course of action. Sure, the wall will eventually come down if we keep banging our head against it, but it's probably going to hurt us a lot more to go that way than it would otherwise if we actually think about it. Because oftentimes, figuring out a problem is more like Edison and the light bulb, in that we can find lots of ways to not do something while searching for the one way to get it done. And when we did in that cycle of getting knocked down and backed up, it's important to actually think about what knocked you down first. For example, in a boxing match, while you have till the referee finishes the count in order to get back up, if you use the same methods, you are likely to get knocked right back down again. But if you end up looking for your opponent's weaknesses or favorite tactics, then you can start the process of countering them. Now, and the list can go on and on. And now there is probably a mind game thing where you could probably say, hey, if I don't switch on my tactics, then the person will probably think I am and make a mistake. But in most cases, that's generally not work. That's certainly not how it works, and especially when you're trying to mind game physics and reality, then you probably want to rethink that strategy. Because again, whether it's adjusting our technique, practicing new strategies, dealing with our weaknesses, we can adapt and learn almost any skill. And while we may not always be the best, we can always learn. I'm kind of fond of the saying that every master was once a disaster, because we all start somewhere, and again, some people may be prodigy level and everything comes easy to them. But sometimes it's actually the learning what doesn't work that really teaches us what to do and why it works the way it does. Because if everything comes easy to you, then what are you really learning? You're just learning that you can do it, you understand it. You may not really have that knowledge of why it works. And again, it's in the pivoting that we're able to tackle challenges and overcome them. For example, if a business were to continually alienate their paying customers, if they don't change, then eventually there will be no more business. So when something doesn't work, it's important to find out why it didn't so that we don't repeat it. Although that can sometimes take a few more falls than sink in, speaking from experience. Because that's kind of the rub. Because if we exhaust the different variations of a specific pattern that we want to try, then we may be tempted to view this as a complete failure or the market is failing or whatever, when the lesson is actually that it's time to try a different pattern or a new pattern or the pattern that we actually may not want to do but is the one that works. Because how we win is getting up one more time than we fall. It's a principle that has lasted ages. I was actually looking up the fall 7 times, get up 8 phrase, and I found out that it's actually a Japanese proverb. At least that's what the Twit Doodle search told me. Now there is a similar phrase in Proverbs 24:16, which is, "For a just man falleth 7 times, and rises up again, but the wicked shall fall into mischief." And this demonstrates this idea that its nature is as a principle, something that transcends cultures, languages, and is passed through the generations because it speaks to something that is universal and truth that people can see in action over and over again. But I do find that section of Proverbs interesting because of the verse prior and the two after. In the previous verse, it's actually a warning to the wicked not to go after the righteous because they will get up, but the wicked will end up falling. And then the following verses bring in another perspective about not being glad when we see someone fall, because then God may decide to not let it continue, which is an interesting thought to leave off of. Because in a way, it makes seeking those win-win solutions that a lot of people like to talk about but don't actively pursue even more appealing. But that might be a topic for another video. And if you would like to see that video or have thoughts about this one, let us know in the comments below. Anyway, I'm Jonah. You've been watching Lionsmane Media, where we celebrate stories and show the lessons they teach us. Have a great rest of your day, and talk to you later.